It rained every day this week in Medellin. I've been here for nearly 3 weeks, and daily life has developed a soothing predictability. My morning coffee is usually accompanied by a view of the hills, but today it was covered by heavy gray clouds. Days like these make me want to stay home no matter where I am in the world. Luckily, my apartment for the month has a terrace and a hammock, the perfect place for me to read, write, or simply sit quietly while enjoying the fresh mountain breeze. The allure of travel is undeniable. Every day a potential postcard. Every corner holds a promise of adventure. But for the long-term traveler, spontaneity isn't always your best friend, but structure is. Routine, even for a fleeting month, becomes the anchor in this storm of impermanence. This harmony between daily life and exploration fosters a deeper connection with where you are, transforming a new city into a temporary home with its own comforting rhythm. Traveling long-term means finding balance in trying new foods and keeping a stable foundation for your diet. One of the first things I do to help settle into a new environment is locating the nearest grocery store or marketplace. Cooking a healthy meal is the best way to feel at home. My staples are fresh fruits and vegetables, garlic, lentils, eggs, oatmeal, peanut butter, and brown rice. I like to make herbal drinks, so I also stock up on limes, ginger, and green tea. At first, I was intimidated as I walked towards the market. Despite my previous 6 months in Mexico City, my Spanish was still below average. I was certain none of the vendors or shopkeepers spoke English. I didn't speak a local language in Southeast Asia either, but I think being Asian myself helped reduce the anxiety of being overcharged or misunderstood. It turned out I had nothing to be afraid of. The local people were polite, kind, and helpful, and I'm fairly certain they didn't overcharge me. One vendor even gave me some bananas as a gift with my purchase. A friend of mine from Bogota told me the Colombian diet doesn't involve many vegetables. Indeed, I noticed a wide variety of fruits with a smaller section in vegetables, but it was still enough choice for me. Unlike local markets I've seen in Southeast Asia, this one was noticeably clean, with proper refrigeration, sinks, sellers in uniform, even a section for ATMs. This wonderful place became a cornerstone of my daily life in Medellin. A common complaint I hear from other foreigners concerns Colombian cuisine. True, it isn't as spicy or as complicated as Mexican cuisine, but I appreciated the hearty simplicity of the ingredients and looked forward to my daily lunches at the local market. There must have been 20 or 30 food stalls and lunch counters, but I guess I was a bit early because most of the vendors weren't finished cooking yet. My housemates back in Mexico City always teased my eating schedule. I usually have lunch at noon, which I thought was normal. My Mexican and Argentinian friends would have lunch at 3, 4, sometimes even 5 p.m. Well, it was noon that day, so I sat down at the only food stall that looked ready to receive customers. The small restaurant was run by 4 women. The oldest woman cooked, while a younger woman assisted her, and the 2 youngest took orders, served customers, and collected money. The cook looked like she was in her late 30s. At first I thought she had a mouthful of gold teeth, but then realized they were braces. Adult braces are common outside the United States. There were 3 options for soup, at least 5 options for a main course, and 3 options for fresh juice, all around 14 to 18,000 Colombian pesos, which is about $4 to $6 US. When it comes to restaurants, I never feel the need to try every option available. If the first one has delicious food with generous portions at a good price, then I instantly become a loyal customer. My favorite Colombian dishes were sancocho de pescado, a thick fish soup made with fresh vegetables, herbs, and spices, caldo de costillas, which is ribs simmered in a rich broth, and cazuela, a rich stew with meat, vegetables, and sometimes rice. Every dish at this restaurant came with a generous helping of boiled potato, yuca, rice, and fried plantain. The juice selection was also excellent. The most intriguing was tomate arbol, a tart relative to the traditional tomato. Of the 3 soups, I'd always get the beans because it was the most filling. After lunch, like clockwork, I'd head to the coffee vendor in the next aisle for a strong cappuccino, which I noticed was much cheaper than any cafe in the neighborhood. Then I'd return home, my arms full of groceries and my belly full of food, and get back to work. For me, one of the best things Latin America has to offer is music and dancing. Colombia is deservingly famous for both. I decided to orient most of my free time in Medellin to becoming a better dancer. I had taken salsa and bachata group classes in Mexico City for a month, so I was ready to take my skills to the next level. I found a local dance school in my neighborhood and bought a private class package. While enrolling with reception, I met an American traveler named Mike, who took salsa lessons for 5 hours a day with different teachers. He shared with me a list of popular dance socials and language exchanges, and my weekly evening schedule unfolded before my eyes. Mike was an English teacher on summer vacation and wanted to immerse himself in the joyful Latin rhythms as much as he could before returning to his job in Kuwait, where there wasn't much of a salsa scene. Aside from salsa and bachata, the dance school also offered tango, which drew my eye. I foolishly believed I had good balance since I've been practicing yoga for years now. I quickly discovered that standing on one leg for 30 seconds is one thing, but kicking your legs while your body is pressed from cheek to stomach with your dance partner is another matter entirely. My handsome dance teacher said I seemed scared when I tangoed, which was all about sureness in every step. He was right. I was scared I'd accidentally kick him in the knees if I stepped with too much sureness. Every morning I'd have 1 to 2 hours of salsa, bachata, or tango. It's funny how a year ago I didn't even know the word bachata. Now I said it every day. I also took my first belly dancing class. The isolation of hips and torso challenged my ingrained Latin dance habits. The subtle shifts were counterintuitive to the full-body connection of salsa and bachata. These new movements were a different language entirely. I was relieved to see I wasn't the only one in class struggling. I left the studio that day with a sense of accomplishment. I tried something new, and I found something I wish to pursue further once my travels take me to that part of the world. I naively assumed this dance school paid its teachers a high salary because it had so many foreign customers, and private classes were $15 each, which was quite high for Colombia. I found out from one of my bachata teachers that he was getting paid less than $5 per hour, and then quickly told me not to tell anyone. I asked if he could teach private lessons on his own, but he said he didn't have a place to receive clients. Here at the school, he had rooms with speakers, fans, and wall-to-wall mirrors. Plus, he didn't have to go looking for clients since the school provided them. No matter how glamorous it may seem, being an independent entrepreneur certainly had its drawbacks. I went out almost every night during my month in Medellin. There was definitely something special about the exuberant nature of the Colombian people. On any Tuesday or Wednesday, the socials would be full of people who just wanted to dance for an hour or two before turning in for the evening. I'd usually arrive at 9 p.m., dance for an hour or so, and be home before 11:30, feeling like my day was complete. The clubs were a 10-minute walk from my apartment, so I'd memorize the way, leave my phone at home, and only bring a bit of cash for the cover charge. I laughed at the stark contrast between the studio and socials. The dance school was a utopia of polished floors where my wonderful teacher made me feel like a sparkling diamond even when I made mistakes. The dance socials were a pulsating jungle of bodies. Sweat mingled with 50 different perfumes, colognes, and aftershaves. Elbows thrown, long hair flying, feet crushed, It was the classroom versus the real world, and I loved it. My first time using Medellin's impressive public transport was on my way to Parque RV, which I recommend to anyone who wants a rigorous walk through the forest. Metro stations were incredibly clean, clearly marked, and most impressive of all, no one pushed or shoved. The Colombian people, despite their country's recent violent history, were extraordinarily polite, orderly, and helpful. My Italian roommate recalled times she appeared lost while walking down the street, and a local woman called out to her from the balcony above, asking where she was going and gave her directions. Apart from trains, Medellin also had cable cars, buses, and to my surprise, air-conditioned electric trams. I took the tranvia on the way to getting my yellow fever vaccine, which I didn't have before embarking on this Latin America trip. Apparently, it was required when traveling between certain countries. In the United States, it would have cost hundreds of dollars. In Medellin, it cost $25. I decided to take a car on the way back from the hospital. I took out my phone to check my messages, and the driver rolled up the windows just in case a passing motorcyclist tried to reach in and snatch it from my hands. At a red light, we saw a man run into the road and jump onto the back of a truck. He held onto the metal rails at the top, his feet balanced on the back bumper. The light turned green, and I saw the daring hitchhiker shift his body unsteadily as the truck swerved onto the highway. I've hitchhiked many times before, but never like this. My flatmates and I had a little going-away party for our Brazilian friend, Guilherme. It was a name I never heard before I met him. Guilherme was from Sao Paulo, and thanks to him, I now know the music of Tim Maia. At the party was Maria, an Ecuadorian law student working towards her degree in Colombia because the tuition was a fraction of the price of law schools in Ecuador. There was a Venezuelan girl named Ana who just got into meditation to help with her anxiety. She told me, in case I ever needed to, you can get Plan B delivered to your door like you could do with takeout. Sometimes there's even a promotion that includes alcohol with your emergency contraceptive. I wondered if this had something to do with her anxiety. Then there was Milton, a Colombian man from Barranquilla who lived in Brazil for a few years and spoke fluent Portuguese and English. Milton felt strongly that Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, and Panama should all be one country. It used to be called Gran Colombia back in the early 19th century anyways. They were already very similar cultures and together would have a stronger economy. He said the states of Brazil were more different than they were, with enough striking contrasts to be separate countries. Yet they stay united, and Brazil has the strongest economy in South America. The Ecuadorian and Venezuelan guests at the party did not agree with Milton's opinion. I was sad to see Guilherme go. I had gotten used to seeing him at the kitchen table every morning, already on a call with his remote team and speaking in rapid Portuguese. He used to surf every morning before work back when he lived in Salvador, saying nothing could ruin his mood for the rest of the day. He was returning to Sao Paulo to see his family, then moving on to Argentina. He had a wonderfully relaxed attitude towards the coming and going of people in this traveler's life we both led. It's the way we've chosen to live during this period in our lives. We must be at peace with the challenges and sacrifices that come with it, like we do with everything else. I had just finished reading 8 Months on Gaza Street by Hilary Mantel. The story follows an English woman who moved to Saudi Arabia with her husband, primarily for the high-paying job offered to him. The novel touches on the materialistic reasons for enduring the hardships of living in a foreign country with a vastly different culture. When people ask, what brings me to Colombia, I can't help but say nothing. I like to cluster my travels by region because of cheaper and shorter flights. Colombia was next on the list after Mexico. I used the same strategy while living in Southeast Asia, although back then I had a job and an apartment in Vietnam, so I always had a home base. It was like planting a seed on foreign soil. Now it's more like a dandelion. There's no time for roots to burrow. The road is paved with adventure, but it's also a test of one's resilience.